Simon, let's talk about the elections. Of course, we'll vote on the 7th of May and results will be released soon after that. What do you think makes this election different to any of the ones preceding it?
Well, I think you're going to see a proper contest in Gauteng for the first time. I wrote in an article a couple of days ago that Gauteng has been framed all about whether the DA's candidate for premier could possibly win. I don't think that winning a majority in the provincial assembly is really the only thing that's riding on this race. The formula that works out who goes to parliament, half the seats are decided on a provincial level. And because there's so many people living in Gauteng, just under a quarter of those seats are decided by Gauteng alone. For example, in the 99 election, the DA won nearly 50% of the vote in the Western Cape and got 12 seats of those 200, and it won only just over 20% in Gauteng and got 10. So the numbers are skewed very much in that direction. If the DA can pick up a good percentage of the votes, like the polls show they are likely to do, there are significant consequences nationally for that. It's not just provincial, and I think if there's one province that you're looking at a big swing in, it's probably going to be Gauteng. The other big variable is obviously the Northern Cape, but we all expect something to happen in the Northern Cape every year. If you look back at the numbers, there does seem to be a willingness to vote for an opposition party. It's just never really been the DA. In the earlier elections, there was a hefty chunk of the vote that went to the National Party, and when they folded, the ANC absolutely barnstormed the province in 2004. And then when Cope arrived, it won a decent chunk of the Northern Cape vote, and the DA didn't really change all that much. If the DA can make a dent in the Western Cape, I beg your pardon, in the Northern Cape this time around, it will be a first, and it'll be interesting to see whether that can actually happen.
Well, speaking of the Northern Cape, it may come up to a smaller party like the EFF even to be kingmaker in the province. Do you think that we'll see a lot of coalitions coming up after the elections?
I think it's certainly possible. I still think the ANC is going to do pretty well across the board. I'd be very surprised if it fell below 50% in any province except the Western Cape, to be completely honest with you. But we do stand a chance that, say, in Gauteng, if the ANC inexplicably fell below 50%, and the DA and its sort of coalition that it managed to cobble together got another 48%, and EFF won 4%, you've all of a sudden got a very tricky set of variables there to try and put together a governing coalition, because the DA said it won't work with EFF. EFF, just the way it's campaigned, simply can't work with the ANC, and it's very unlikely that the ANC and the DA would get together. And then you really start looking at, parties like the Freedom Front and the IFP will probably win one or two seats in Gauteng, and you're right, all of a sudden they become incredibly powerful. The Freedom Front Plus has shown it's willing to get into some sort of agreement with the ANC. Peter Mulder, who's the head of that party, is the Deputy Minister of Agriculture. I'm not particularly sure what he got or what he had to give for that position, but he's certainly shown a willingness to deal under those sort of circumstances. And what the IFP does with its small amount is really it's anyone's guess. The IFP and the DA have tried an alliance before; it didn't go so well. So there are a lot of very small variables that could have a massive impact, particularly in Gauteng. I think is the one where you'd look if things like this do come to fruition.
We've got lots of new parties, namely the Gang and the EFF, contesting this election, and the EFF predictions as of today are 12%. Do you think it's realistic?
Yeah, look, I think you've got to look at how this polling is done. Our polling in South Africa is pretty rubbish. We very rarely have a pollster get it right, and South Africa is a very difficult country to poll. I would personally be surprised if EFF got up to 12%, but there is an opposition vote that people want to cast. We saw it with Cope in 2009. There is appetite for opposition to the ANC. It's probably not statistically massive. I mean, I think 12% would be a very, very large chunk. but there is a willingness to vote against the ruling party. I don't think in South Africa we've quite found what that is yet. And this is why we have more elections. We've got to, we very rarely had competition to the left of the ANC. The ANC's actually been very good at keeping its left flank pretty secure. And this will be the first election that's got a party with money that can really smash it from the left-hand side. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, because even if EFF does get 12%, they've got a pretty large platform to make a lot of noise for as long as they hold seats in parliament. And there are issues that they bring up that are issues in South Africa that the ANC hasn't dealt with well, land reform being one of them. There's certainly nothing stopping EFF getting 12%, other than voters' unwillingness to really take their policies seriously. And Julius Malema might be a nice flashy leader, but he's been accused of a lot of things, and he's going to be in the headlines not just for what he says in Parliament. He's going to be in the headlines for a lot of bad reasons too, and that could mitigate that. I would be surprised if it got up to 12%.